If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 327 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Rafa Benitez of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a pretty busy night in the world of mixed martial arts. We're recording here just after the card finished, so a very quick reaction. There's much coming up next weekend, so we'll talk a lot about this card that has just gone by. And we've another few topics as well that we shall bring to you. But first of all, we must tell you that everyone knows who listens to this podcast. You know, we're an MMA podcast, but we like a bit of soccer as well. And that's back now. And our friends at Manscaped are here with a masterclass to get you ready for the new season. The leaders in men's grooming have done it again and just launched their 4th generation performance package. Included in that is that 4.0. Absolutely unbelievable. Unamazing, I was going to call it. Unbelievable. The 4.0 trimmer. The 4.0 will even have Paddy Saint-Germain jealous of your well-groomed package. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the new Performance Package 4.0 by going to manscaped.com and getting 20% off and free shipping with the code Severe MMA. Myself and Graeme, obviously, you know, we've been about a year using Manscaped now, and it's absolutely phenomenal stuff altogether. You know, getting back out into the world, Bellator is coming up. We'll be heading up to that, so we'll have to be fully scaped for that one. The Performance Package 4.0 by Manscaped is here, and wow, that's the package. It's absolutely class from top to bottom. I'll take your grooming game to the next level. Inside, you will find that Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer formulations, and 2 free gifts. First of all, the new 4.0 includes the Lawnmower 4.0. The trimmer, it gives an absolute masterclass and a clinical trim to your balls. The summer transfer window has brought lots of changes to my team, especially 1 or 2 to Graeme's as well. We even saw Messi transferred this season. I'm with Team Manscaped thanks to Lawnmower 4.0. The new technology has upgraded my midfield and make sure my pubes aren't messy anymore. Well, many nice midfield I want up there. Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a function on and off switch to engage a travel lock, and gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Oh, did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too? Brilliant. Rain or shine, the mates at Manscaped have you covered. Speaking of covered, do you have nose or ear hair? I always find that very hard to say. Nose or ear hair. Mine are the worst. That's a lie. Mine are grand. I actually gave mine away to my father and he uses it the whole time. It's absolutely brilliant. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker to chop your worst weeds up to your nose and ears. It's also waterproof, and the proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, tugs, and other stuff as well. I got the word proprietary right. I'm absolutely delighted. Then you can't forget Manscaped's liquid formulations, which I use all the time, are brilliant. The Crop Preserver and Reviver Ball Toner, which are just brilliant. They're basically like deodorant for the balls, so they're absolutely fantastic. And the 2 free gifts as well, the boxers and the travel bag. So that's it. Get 20% off, free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. Get some kick some overgrown pubes, hairs, and grass this season with Manscaped. Right, Graeme, let's get straight into it. Sure, a big night. Look, it was like a UK MMA kind of UFC fight night tonight, with, you know, obviously Paddy Pimblett, Jack Shore, Molly McCann, Modestas Bukowskis, Tom Aspinall, Darren Till, and
Darren Till wasn't really on an 8-hour card, so Darren Till was kind of the outlier.
Yeah, he was a little bit, I suppose, actually, yeah, but it was, you know, it was a good card. I thought overall it was a good one to be on early. And you know what as well? I think the international weekend really probably benefited it. I know we don't really get the BT Sports numbers or anything like that ever, but the the fact that there was no Liverpool Man United games or anything this evening, there was no England weren't playing tonight. I think Ireland had a game against Azerbaijan or something, but that was over by the time the main event came on. So
great point.
Yeah, thank you, Graeme. I appreciate that. So yeah, great.
The Ireland point. The Ireland point. Not your verbal diarrhea.
I thought I was getting a compliment there, but no. I didn't actually see any of it. I didn't even realise we were playing till the game was on. But anyway,
it's like that Father Ted. We're just talking about how great you are. Really? No.
Legend, Father Dick Byrne. What a man. But so it was a good time for this card to be on. It also just to complain here for a second, but like the UFC have been putting on lots of really late cards, 6-fight, 3 a.m. main events. And this really shows that they don't need to do that. Okay, fair enough for a pay-per-view card or a big ESPN card, but when they regularly do this on their previously Fight Pass or ESPN Plus cards now, they really don't need to do it that late. So earlier cards, please, that would be absolutely fantastic.
We'll see what the numbers are. Like if the numbers are the same or better, maybe they consider making them a little bit earlier, but it probably depends on a lot of things, like what sport is going on in America at the time and around the world. You don't want to clash with like Premier League games or NFL games or even big college football games, and there's all sorts of different sports that are going on in America, so probably a lot of considerations going on for that.
Just do it like PFL and just like wait an hour if there's something on and just come back. It'll be grand, it'll be fine. But yeah, like I feel like the fact that they are online now and people will go forward or go back and watch what they want at whatever time they want. I feel like it's not as much of a stress as it once was. Things clashing. So I think they can do it as early or late as any. But anyway, maybe we'll talk more about that later on. But I'm going to start with Paddy Pimblett because we've talked about Paddy for years, obviously, on this podcast, and the lads over in England have interviewed him, and I think he fought once in Ireland as well at Cage Warriors, and we've talked about him for a long time, and you know what? Tonight was really an encapsulation of everything Paddy Pimblett. We had the fun and the hilariousness of the interview and the walk to the cage and the walk back from the cage, especially. We had his devastating ability in the finish, and we also had his flaws that could be seen for the world to see. So really, in like the 18 minutes or whatever it was that Paddy Pimblett was out there, we saw everything of him and everything from him. The one new thing that I was really, really impressed with was Paddy Pimblett was his physical state. He looked in ridiculous shape. Like, he had muscles on top of muscles. Just looking at his back and the muscles coming out of him, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. So that's, we talked about it in the last couple of weeks. Would Paddy take it serious? Looks like he did, didn't he?
It looks like he wasn't in Ibiza after all for the last 3 years.
No Ferrero Rochers this time, was it? Yeah. But he looked in phenomenal shape, didn't he?
Yeah. In fairness to him, he's definitely had some problems in the past with kind of keeping his eye on the ball, but he's waited a long time to get into the UFC. It's been about 4 years since he was first a Cage Warriors champion when he was 21, and there was a lot of talk of him going to the UFC then, but I think this seems to be a better time for him to arrive, and it's good that they gave him a decent matchup. They didn't throw him in there against in a shark pit like they have done in the past with some UK and Irish prospects. So, they obviously see that Paddy has a bit to him in terms of his personality and he's a bit funny and cheeky, and he has a bit of a backing already, and he has dedicated fans, and they've seen what he can do in Liverpool in terms of selling out the Echo Arena and stuff like that. So, obviously, the UFC needs stars, and they need people who they can put on. They can put on these European cards, and then as obviously these American cards as well as you build them up. So, obviously Paddy's high level fighting ability is yet to be seen. Can he do it in the UFC against top level guys? I think he's got work to do. Obviously getting cracked early and recovering from it is great to see, overcome adversity and all that, but it does show his flaws as we've known them in the past, as you mentioned earlier. So obviously he got a finish by striking, and the striking probably looked offensively better than it's ever looked, but
100%.
still that the defensive striking is still a problem. But he's that kind of guy who, as he says, or as he allegedly said, even though BT didn't let us hear it, us fucking Scousers don't get knocked out.
Yeah.
So he kind of has that attitude. So, you know, maybe until he gets knocked out, he will have that attitude of just pushing forward, and maybe it'll take a knockout or a TKO for him to kind of, you know, maybe not be as reckless with his striking as he is.
Yeah, the Scousers don't get knocked out unless it's like, you know, the League Cup, FA Cup, or Champions League. Then they're always getting knocked out. But anyway, I'll leave that. I'll leave that where it is. Come here to me.
What? We don't get knocked out as much as you lads, anyway. What?
No, go on now. Leave me alone. I'm in a delicate
position. You
got
knocked out of the Champions League and the Europa League last year. That was some achievement.
We didn't get knocked out of the Europa League. In fairness, we got right to the very last second of the Europa League.
You got knocked out at the last hurdle. Yeah.
No, we didn't though. We were there. We were in the very last second of the Europa League, so we didn't get knocked out at all. And Liverpool got knocked out of every competition last year, basically. So anyway, we leave it at that. Do you know what? I had like something I don't really feel after fights these days, because you know, when we're watching fights these days, I'm looking at it from a very kind of analytical point of view, whether it's talking about the analysis of the fight or the analysis of the judging or whatever it might be. But I had like an overwhelming sense of, I can't wait for Paddy Pimblett's next rodeo, kind of, at the end of this one, you know. I was kind of glad it was rolling on so we could have a bit more fun with it. And not to say even
who do you think it will be next? Well, like, who would you like to see him fight next, and who do you think it will be next?
I would like to see someone very similar to this matchup, like someone we've probably never heard of, who is not that good, to be honest. Because you hit the nail on the head there. I was going to say exactly what you said. I thought he looked way better offensively and still had big issues defensively. But that's an improvement for Paddy Pimblett. You know, people might think, and they mightn't have seen Paddy and talked about his game or analysed his game over the years, but we really have. And we've seen, you know, Paddy's flaws. Obviously brilliant in his area on the ground, and a brilliant finisher. Not well, you know, he's a finisher is the word. You know, maybe if it was like a technical jiu-jitsu matchup against other people, he mightn't win those. But if it was a finishing matchup, Paddy is going to be right there at the top of all of those sort of competitions. But I think, look, we spoke last week, and I spoke on the Q&A as well. A few people asked, and it was about whether Paddy can put what he has done in the last few years, because he has, you know, it's been a tough few years for Paddy Pimblett. If you look at his career over the last while, he fought against Davide Martinez in the last Cage Warriors, the Cage Warriors 1-2-2. That was at the start of this year. And then he's fought at the start of 2020 against Decky Dalton. And those two fights went about 4 minutes all in all. And before that, it was all the way back against Sodden back in 2018. And that was, you know, that loss over, was it over 5 rounds? I think it was. So you went out like 3 years with only 4 minutes inside the cage until tonight. That's a long time of, you know, and he was supposed to fight Donovan Desmay. I'm just looking here, Joji and Eddie on short notice. Remember that in Desmay again. There was lots of fights in there, lots of fights cancelled. But what I talked about last week was, what has Paddy done in those 3 to 4 years in terms of improving his striking? And that, you know, when he fought Sodden back, and when he fought Anad Narimani, and even Arosa further back, that was the one thing that kind of always stood out. And I think what he showed tonight is that he has definitely made improvements. Now, those improvements need to continue, you know, and they need to continue over the next year to 2 years, and they need to continue with Paddy Pimblett fighting inside the cage. What he had missed over the last 3 years was that time inside the cage. Okay, he had the two fights, and they were still a year apart, you know, and 2 minutes 51 seconds, 1 minute 37 seconds, not really much there at all. So if Paddy could get another fight maybe before the end of the year, one early next year as well, maybe get a full 15 minutes in there, and you know, get another finish or something like that, and even if he was to take a loss, I think it'd benefit him. And he really needs those improvements to continue, and the time inside the cage to continue, because Paddy now, if he continues the way he is, if he fights the way he fought tonight, he'll lose very shortly, because the level of in the UFC will improve, and he'll win fights because of his, you know, he has power. You can see his hands, he's more power in his hands than he's ever had, and his brilliant ability to finish on the ground. But he'll also lose because of, you know, Cormier and Bisping kept saying, you know, his head is right up in the air, he's getting hit every time, and that's, you know, it doesn't take a genius to see that, and you can see it every time Paddy has fought. But I would put that a bit down to, you know, the lack of trying out those new things inside the cage, and I think he really needs that time. But look, I said it last week on the podcast, and I said it in the Q&A and all. I don't think Paddy Pimblett's going to be a UFC champion. You know, I don't think he's going to be this ranked fighter in the UFC for years and years and years, unless he makes huge improvements. And there's definitely a start to it. 100%. If you can't see it from tonight, I haven't watched these old fights, you're a bit blind. But there's also you're a bit blind if you don't see the issues. Do you think he has that ability to make those big improvements and to make enough improvements to get to where he is going into UFC fights, and you're not kind of thinking, oh, he's going to get, clipped here, or he has to win in a certain way? Or do you think he'll always have that kind of vulnerability to him?
Well, he's he's been around a long time, and we've kind of watched his career for a long time, and it's easy to forget how young he is. He's still very young, and he's obviously still improving, as we saw there. But I think the way the attitude he goes about fighting would have to change for. He does have a bit of reckless abandon about him. It's like maybe a thing, as I mentioned earlier, maybe a thing that might have to be, might have to be a knockout that kind of stops that. But Paddy Pimblett's obviously known for his ground game. He's been criticized for his striking a lot over the years, and he obviously kind of took that to heart. He didn't like that criticism, and although it's a fair criticism, these fighters are sensitive, and he's obviously improved on that, and he'll know himself deep down what he needs to do. His coaches will be telling him what to do. He'll know what he needs to do. He'll go back and rewatch that fight, and he'll hear the commentator saying, I'm sure everybody around him is saying that to him. So, I think he will continue to improve. Like as you said, I don't think he'll be a UFC champion, but I do think that he can be a ranked fighter for like years. I think he can get to that level, but I don't think he'll ever end up as like a upper echelon fighter or a champion, unless we've seen big turnarounds before, but unless there's like a serious improvements fight to fight, and it's possible, but I don't think it's likely.
What he also has now, I suppose, and it's tough to know because Paddy seemed to, I think he signed a pretty good contract with Cage Warriors the last time he signed with them, but he will have, maybe a bit more money now with the UFC, and even maybe with Cage Warriors, and we've seen the way his body has transformed over the last while. Maybe, and with the pandemic ending as well, in a pandemic cooling down, I suppose, he might be able to travel a bit more and train in other places and improve. I know he was down in Leeds. It was probably a while back now, and there's a really good Muay Thai gym down there, and he was down there improving as well. So, like, all of those things, I think Paddy Pimblett is one of those guys. Like, some people get to the UFC, or you see some people, like someone like a Norbert Navigny is someone who always stands out to me, or McGregor when he got to the UFC. Like, it's almost as if they're ready, and all they need is, like, a little bit to add to it, or a little bit of experience, or just proving it against maybe someone else, say like McGregor proving it against Brandao first, or Brimage first, then Brandao, then a Holloway. They just need that bit of proof. Whereas Pimblett, I think he needs I think he needs the slow road, really. I think he really does. Now, I've said for a while, I think Bellator would have been maybe even better for Paddy Pimblett, because they probably would have given him like 6 to 7 fights against very beatable opponents, built him up, and by that time, I think Paddy, that's the sort of thing he needs, really. He needs time to improve. As you said, he's still very, very young, and he's been around for a long time, so he's not that young in the game, but I think he's one of those lads who hopefully will be improving slowly, and he seems to be improving slowly from the good base he had, I suppose, with the danger. But it mightn't happen. It might never happen.
Even if it never happens, let's say for hypothetical, Paddy never becomes a upper echelon fighter. Can he still be a big star in the UFC without being upper echelon fighter? Do you think, or do you think once you suffer the losses, then people just lose interest in your kind of stick?
It depends. Well, yeah, that could happen. If he suffers losses,
not that it's a stick, but it's his personality.
Character. Yeah. It's difficult, really, isn't it? I think with today's UFC matchmaking, it's going to be a lot harder. I think that is possible, but I don't know you know, this matchmaking was very good, and I said that before the fight. I'm not just saying it after the fight. I said that before the fight as well. Give him someone like this again for the next couple of fights. Give him a matchup like this, or maybe if they're putting him up a little bit, you know, fighting someone a little bit tougher, maybe have that in Liverpool. So, you know, he has something behind him to bring him on a bit. But I think, look, the UFC have a star here. There's no doubt about it. Whatever you think about Paddy Pimblett, if you hate him or love him, or if you whatever you think of his ability inside the cage, and I love a bit of Paddy Pimblett, to be honest, even though he's a big Liverpool fan. I think he's fucking hilarious, and he's even shit talked me in the past before. It was fantastic, but I don't mind at all. But the UFC, people like this do not emerge that often for the UFC. So they need to protect him. They need to do the right things at the right time in the right place. Like, and do you know what they need to do as well? They need to protect Paddy from himself, because Paddy will be wanting to go in there and he'll want to fight fucking Dustin Poirier tomorrow. Like, you know, Paddy he would, you know, he'd take that fight. So I think they have to be careful with him. They have to, you know, get him to where he needs to be. Get Paddy Pimblett fighting the best fighters when we have the best version of Paddy Pimblett. And I'm very, very interested to see. The biggest thing for Paddy, if he can stay fit over the next year. If he can do that and get 2 or 3 fights in, win or lose, I think it's a huge year for Paddy Pimblett. And talk to us again this time next year, and we'll see where he is, see if he's made those improvements, see if he's reaching that next level. And, you know, I'd probably say the same thing about someone like a James Gallagher. You know, he's fighting Patchy Mix now, so maybe maybe he's a little bit a year ahead of Paddy Pimblett. But there's lots of fighters like that where we see how good they are. Like Paddy and James, very similar, very, very good on the ground, have shown big issues on the feet before. Both have kind of mixed things up. Obviously, James gone to America and training there. We're looking to see him fighting Patchy Mix. Has his striking improved? Will it continue to improve? How is he going to look over the next 1 to 2 years? That's the joy of it as well. You know, that's the joy of seeing these fighters. And I was actually talking about it. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about it after we go through the rest of this card. But I just kind of look forward to the Cage Warriors and some of the Bellator cards more than these UFC cards, because, you know, it's a lot of the and this one is obviously an exception to that, but there's a lot of, you know, the Contender Series guys who we haven't seen built up outside of the UFC and get to the UFC and see if they can reach that level. Whereas we see someone like a Pimblett who we've seen built up and built up and built up, and now he's at that level. Can he reach it? Can he continue? Someone like Gallagher, you know, who's been built up inside Bellator, I know, and, you know, he's had 10 fights, and now he's getting to that next level where he's fighting someone like Apache Mix. That's the joy, I think, of seeing the rise of fighters to get to a certain level. And I think it's a big issue with the UFC these days. Someone was saying to me the other day, they love watching all these fights over and over and over. And it's great to have fights all the time, and I'm sure people absolutely love it. But if you're signing lads to the UFC at 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, and they're not getting that valuable experience outside of the UFC, or, you know, in Bellator it's a little bit different because they have kind of they have the European series and they have ways of building lads, but the UFC is a different kettle of fish, and I'm very interested to see how it works out over the next while. But that's maybe a different discussion for a later in this podcast, maybe in a different day. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to see the movements of Paddy Pimblett in his career.
Yeah.
And go on, have you
an exciting debut with you know, a good comeback. It looked like, you know, that shot was a big shot. You know, a lot of guys would have went down from that shot, and he ended up obviously getting the finish in the first round, as he'd kind of promised in pre-fight. So, you know, you can't take much away from him. He went in there and he put on a good fight, and the other guy was game. You know, I didn't know much about him going in, but you know, there's no easy matchups in the UFC really, but, you know, this is kind of as easy as it gets, and, you know, you can only beat what's in front of you, and he overcome a bit of adversity, which is always good to see. And obviously there's going to be UFC jitters that hopefully he's got over now. He's fought in front of big crowds before, and his next fight will probably be in front of another big crowd, and they'll probably be you know, something that he kind of feeds into. And you know, it's just, as you said, it's just interesting to see the progression and to watch these guys and coming from Cage Warriors and shows like that and into the UFC. But Paddy Pimblett, just because of his personality and the fan base behind him just has a little bit extra to it.
Yeah, and that head kick earlier, that was brilliant, and the right hand to finish him off, absolutely lovely stuff. So the offensive work of Paddy Pimblett, brilliant. To just transition us, I suppose, to the main event. We've talked there about Paddy and the progression and the improvement of fighters from where maybe they get into the UFC to where they are, after a few years. And if you look at Darren Till, has he made enough improvements? Has he changed enough? Has he gotten good enough to be a top contender in the UFC? After tonight, after watching that, you'd probably have to say no, But I put it up during the week and I think people were shocked. Darren Till has only 6 wins in the UFC. That's kind of, it's kind of mad when you think about it. We think about someone as like a contender, and he seems to have been a contender for years at 2 different weight classes.
Fights?
So he said, Brunson 1, Whitaker 2, Gastelum 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fights in the UFC now, and 6 wins. So 6 and 5. For someone who is, like, as I said, a contender at 2 weight classes since, the Wonder Boy fight in almost 4 years ago now at this stage, that's it's kind of amazing the way he's kind of got himself to that position. It is a little bit mad. He's only 1 win at middleweight in the UFC against Kelvin Gastelum back in 2019. There was talks if he won tonight, he'd be getting the title shot. So I feel like Darren Till is one of those lads who has maybe talked himself into people thinking he's a way better fighter than he actually is. Now, he's a very good win over Cerrone, a very good win over Wonderboy in a close fight. It doesn't matter if he won or not.
Good win over Wonderboy.
Yeah, but a good performance, whether you think he won or not, to fight Wonderboy in his prime back then, and a good win over Gastelum, who's hot and cold as well. But it's still, you have to be harsh when you're talking about the very top, the upper echelon.
Nearly his best performance was the loss to Whitaker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, without a doubt. But like tonight, I think, Sean, when you watch that fight, and I remember I always talk about Derek Brunson versus Israel Adesanya, and Israel changing his game. Who was it? Was it Mike Wilkinson, I think he fought, where he got taken down a couple of times, and then he changed his game to fight against Derek Brunson, and I talk about every time I do the rewatch, the overhook on one side and the wrist control with the hand, usually the left hand on the other side, to stop Derek Brunson against the cage. It worked every single time for Adesanya against Brunson, and Till didn't do it once tonight. He was getting the underhook a couple of times and he stopped getting off the cage a couple of times, absolutely, but to get that overhook on one side and the wrist control on the other side, that is the takedown defense that works against Derek Brunson. It's the takedown defense that works against most people. It's the best method of takedown defense. And okay, if you get taken down with a double leg in the middle of the cage, it's different, obviously, and he did in the first round. But there was 3 or 4 different times when he was against the cage and Brunson was kind of going in and out and even controlling him there for a while. And it's not only that Till, was not getting out of the position, he was also getting a little bit of air sucked out of him every single time. It was just like Brunson had the better tactics and he had like the better all-around game, I thought, than Till.
And it seemed like Brunson was able to posture up and just throw strikes, and there was no chance of Till trying to sneak in butterfly guards or create space and get back up. He was just kind of laying there. They were talking about Brunson. The commentators were talking about how Brunson's ground and pound is so much improved, but I thought it was just, you usually don't see guys be able to posture up that long and throw strikes without like being pushed away or without some kind of knee or butterfly guard coming in between. So I don't know. I thought Darren Till got kind of tired quickly on his back. I don't know if maybe, he's cutting a lot of weight or something, or there's an injury going in there, or he just wasn't in the shape that he usually in. But I think he lost his cardio kind of quicker than he usually does. Maybe that was due to the style of the fight. Obviously, he's a Muay Thai striker and he's on his back, but he wasn't as if he was exploding a lot off his back trying to get up. I think maybe, I don't know, we might hear something afterwards, but Brunson himself said in the post-fight interview that he had a bunch of injuries throughout the whole camp. So that's the game. That's the MMA game.
Yeah, you obviously it's worrying. Like, say someone like a McGregor, who people would class in a Till, good striker, maybe not the best in the ground. You see, when he gets taken down by Poirier, especially in the first fight, he immediately, it might be in the middle of the cage, he immediately squirts to the side of the cage. Squirts, that's a weird word to use, but squirms, I suppose is the word I'm using, to the cage, wall walks, and tries to get back up or get into a clinch, or even, just give himself a bit of space, give himself that cage to use. At no point tonight almost was Till able to do that. It was just, it was like, I always talk about jiu-jitsu at this level, and because everyone kind of has the skill set now, it's not as easily used. And, the same goes for, like, most parts of MMA, to be honest, unless you are like a fucking world-class striker or something like that, and you get 15 minutes standing with someone, you're just going to fucking destroy them, and they're not that good, It's rare we see that, especially at this level, where it's two guys ranked, probably both in the top 10 or 11, whatever it might be. But tonight, it just looked like, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, on the ground, Derek Brunson was just bashing Darren Till up. And the end as well, I suppose. I thought that, like, Till came out in the third round. And, okay, so the first round, Till was pushing forward. I thought he'd actually a good game plan to push him forward and kind of stop those takedowns. The only issue with that is Brunson is happy to, like, put his head down and throw that big overhand left. And when he did it, he hit Till once. And Till was like, oh, Jesus, let's maybe take a slight step back here. And when he did that, Brunson was just, he just saw that takedown. He took him down, and I thought he had huge damage for maybe a 2-minute portion of that first round. I gave it to him as a 10-8. He just busted Till open. The second round was close on the feet because Till was a little bit wary. Got the takedown again. 3 minutes-ish on top, and a 10-9 round to Derek Brunson. And then in the third, looking at that, when Till came out, and you could see he was kind of landing that straight. Look, we're talking a lot about Till, I suppose, because we're, he's from this side of the world, but we'll talk about Derek Brunson as well. But I thought Derek, for being overcritical, Derek got hit by as you mentioned, Graeme, a tired Darren Till. He got hit probably 3 or 4 times, which you'd be a little bit worried about if you're a Derek Brunson fan and he's going into fight someone, say, like maybe a Whitaker or an Adesanya. But the point I was making there is, like, the second Brunson turned around and got the fight to the ground, when it ended up in the mount, it was over. Like, Darren Till it was a complete, you said, I don't know if you used the word panic, but it was like a tired panic. It was like as if Darren Till had never been in that position before, in that sort of area. And look, we see that happening an awful lot to an awful lot of different fighters. But if you're talking about yourself as the best in the world, as fighting Israel Adesanya, that's just not good enough. That's just not good enough. Those improvements that Darren Till was supposed to have made over the last few years, I just don't think they're there. I just don't think he is at that level. And, people have asked me...
Let's be honest about it. Like, he got ran over by Derek Brunson, and Derek Brunson isn't an upper echelon fighter. Like, he's kind of like the gatekeeper to the top ranked guys. Like, he's a bit inconsistent. He's a good fighter, but he's not going to trouble Adesanya at all. And for Darren Till, he really has to go back to the drawing board here. This is a really, really bad loss for him. If he had lost a close decision or something, okay, but he got demolished here.
He really did. I would take a little bit of exception to that. Look, I think if I was Israel Adesanya was fighting Brunson next year, absolutely I pick Adesanya, sorry. But I think Brunson has hugely improved. I know we talked about Sanford MMA last week with Ian Gary going there and everything. He's gone there, Derek Brunson. And I think he looks a completely different fighter. Like Derek Brunson tonight, when he saw Darren Till coming forward, Derek Brunson of 2 years ago would have just went fire for fire with Darren Till, and maybe he would have got a knockout, or maybe he would have got knocked out himself. But tonight he went for those smart takedowns. He postured up at the right time. He landed the shots at the right time. And, okay, he didn't look perfect in all areas, but I thought it was as smart a display as you'll ever see from Derek Brunson. And I do like this middleweight division is terrible. Let's be honest here. It's a terrible, terrible middleweight division. And I do think he is upper echelon, and upper echelon in this division mightn't be the quality of upper echelon in another division, but he is a top 5-ish fighter in this division, and that to me is upper echelon. So I would definitely fight Derek Brunson's side in that, because I think he's moved from a top from a 10 to 15 ranked fighter to like a 5 to 10 ranked fighter, maybe a little bit higher even. And that's all credit, I think, to the improvements he's made and the new gym he's in. So I would give huge credit to Derek Brunson for that. But yeah, like I thought his takedowns are obviously very good, and I thought his ground and pound was very good in the finish. Obviously, he took it really, really well, and I like the way he put on the pressure at the right time at the end as well. You know, when the mount was there and he took it. You know, there was a lot of motion, I suppose, going on there when the fight went to the ground, and he easily could have maybe slipped off or got into like a side control position, or Till was almost out at one stage, but he was a little bit calmer than Till and a little bit more controlled, and he took that mount. And when Till gave up the back, it was kind of all over, and there was. It was one of those ones where it was all panic from Till and no panic from Brunson, and I think that was the winning and losing of it in the end. But I suppose, look, onwards and upwards for Brunson. He says he's sitting out and waiting for the winner of Whitaker versus Adesanya, as he should. I think that's the right decision. What next? What next for Till? Like, as we say, he's lost 4 of his last 5 fights. The UFC are invested in him. I don't think they'll be cutting him or anything like that. If you are the UFC, would you still be in the Darren Till business, or would you like part ways with him, or what would you do?
I think you give him somebody like a Uriah Hall, somebody like that. You know, even a Weidman, if you want him to get him a win. Depends how invested the UFC are in him. Really, I think they seem to be, giving him, maybe, as you mentioned, better fights than he really deserves, or higher profile fights than he really deserves recently. So I think maybe
him versus Edmund Shabazian, I think it'd be a good fight. I like that fight. But yeah, I think the Uriah Hall fight.
It's a riskier one. Yeah. It's a riskier one, though. I think the Uriah Hall one's a nice one for him. Mm-hmm. He's not going to try and take him down. It's kind of what Darren Till wants. Yeah. I don't think he can go down as low as like a Brad Tavares or a Kevin Holland.
I don't know. I think you probably can. I think him versus Holland would be a good fight as well, because Holland is a crap takedown defense as well, and it's the right way to go. But I feel like him versus Hall is a perfect fight, because say whatever you want about Till, but he will go forward and he will try to throw strikes, and if he does that against Uriah Hall, well, Uriah Hall will be forced to throw a few strikes as well. So I think that'd be a fun fight. A few people have suggested that.
That'd be a big enough fight for like a UFC Liverpool or UFC London or any kind of UK UFC card.
100%. So I think that's the one. Let's do that. So yeah, look, a good main event, and a fun fight over 3 rounds that Derek Brunson definitely deserved to win. And for Derek Brunson, I suppose it was an easy enough fight to get to a title shot. So I'm sure he's happy with that matchmaking. But let's run quickly through some of the other fights. And there's a few specific fights obviously we want to talk about. Marc-Andre Barriault got the unanimous decision over Dalsha Langiambula in a very, very fun fight. I wouldn't be surprised if that got fighted tonight, maybe. Although there's a couple of others as well up there, but that was very, very fun. Julian Rosa got a beautiful Darce choke over Charles Jourdain in a relatively close fight. Every time Juicy J fights, it seems to be a fun one. Maybe Juicy J versus Paddy Pimblett is the fight to make again, the rematch. I know Juicy J is down at 145 at the moment, but he's fought at 150 here, so maybe. Would you like to see that rematch?
Like, I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I'm not. It's not one I've been gagging for or anything like that. Yeah. I think Rosa had a very good performance in the first round, and then the second round, I think it looked like it swung the other way, but obviously he ended up getting the finish in the end. So he locked it on quickly. So he's got a lot of finishes in his career. He's a dangerous guy, and maybe he came in underestimated against Paddy Pimblett, but people know about him now, and he's maybe not the most fluid guy, but I think Paddy looks to have advanced more than Rosa has, even though Rosa had a really nice finish and has been in the UFC longer than Pimblett at this stage. His current run he's having in the UFC. So yeah, I'm not too bothered to see that again. It wasn't exactly the most exciting fight the first time. It was just the kind of the controversy around it, or the talk about it. It wasn't like a barn burner that we need to run back. Like I don't think people were screaming for another round.
Six. Diego Sanchez probably was the sixth round going on, but yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing. I actually think Garroza has improved more than Pimblett over the while. I think Garroza is a very, very good fighter now, and a very exciting. Like, he's underrated, one of the most exciting fighters in UFC. Genuinely, like, all his fights are fucking madness, and there's always like big finishes and things. So I'm a big fan of Julian Rosa. But anyway, Jack Shore moved to 15-0. Like, this guy, I actually thought it wasn't Jack Shore's best performance, but that's been very, very tough on him. I think from the first couple of rounds, his takedowns are so well timed. It's just absolutely brilliant, and he almost got the choke a couple of times in the first round, I think it was. And like,
Yeah.
his opponent,
I thought he was very close to getting that the head and arm choke that he kind of gave up on. I thought it was like literally like a couple of seconds more, and I think the guy was kind of the muscles or the veins in his face were becoming more visible. I think maybe if he had to just squeezed a few more seconds, he might have got the finish there, but obviously we'll never know, and he doesn't want to burn his arms out, and he's on his way cruising to a victory, so it probably was the smart move to just
it was one of those ones where if he could see it from overhead, I think he probably would have held it on, because Ludovic was like pulling on his arm, trying to get a little bit of air in there, and obviously Jack Shore, facing completely the other way, couldn't really see that, and then kind of gave it up. But I think he was too close to the cage. I think he realised, like, I need that space, when they get the head and arm choke like that, and they go around the clock and they move around and they cinch it up and up and up. But I think it might have been I think you might be right, but yeah, it was an unfortunate one, really. But it didn't matter in the end. He went on, and the third round I think was the closest of them all. But Jack Shore, it was a pretty easy one for him against.
How far do you think he can go, Jack Shore?
I think he needs to. The one thing I would improve with Jack Shore is the speed maybe of his combinations. I don't know if he'll ever be like a power puncher or anything like that. Like at the highest level, if he goes in there against other guys maybe at the lower level of the 135 division, absolutely. And I think he probably will get a few knockouts. But I think if he becomes a better combination puncher and kicker and all-round striker, to set up his takedowns a little bit more, but also to challenge people very dangerously on the feet, he's going to be a really, really hard guy to beat, because those takedowns and that ground game is so good that if it's all there together, he will be so dangerous. So, like, the difference between someone like a Jack Shore and say like a Paddy Pimblett is Jack Shore has all the tools. He just needs to cinch him up a bit, I feel like. And if he keeps improving, and they always say they're getting their 1% better every day, if he does that for the next 2 years, Jack Shore might be the best 135er in the world. Like, I think he's that good, but it's not always that easy. It doesn't always happen like that. I thought about the same with Magomed Sharapov, and I thought the same about other people, and it doesn't happen. You look at, say, someone like a Habib, or you look at Nusman, and you think the same, and then it does happen with them. So it doesn't always happen, by any means. But Jack Shore has the tools. Like, that jab I thought was lovely tonight. Maybe his cardio might be a little bit of an issue as well, although out in Vegas in that heat at this time of the year as well, I'm sure it's not easy for someone Welsh. And you're looking at Molly McCann as well, I know we'll get to her. I'm not sure if she had a bit of sunburn or if she got a few belts early in the fight, but I was looking at her, I was like, she's awful red. I was like, geez, that's probably not a good thing to have gone into a fight. But yeah, I think valuable experience for Jack Shore, and he's had a good bit of experience, I know now, but I think he's good. How far do you think he can go? Do you think of him as highly as I do?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, he's. I think if he's given the kind of slow road, which he seems to have so far, if he continues that, then I think he'll have time to develop. And I think he's definitely not the finished article yet. But although he is well rounded, but there's a lot of good guys in that division, and I think if you put him in too early, it could derail him. But you build him up slowly, I could see him being a top 5 guy in a few years. But I don't know about being at the title. It's so hard, or a title contender or a title holder. It's so hard to call. He's got a very good record, but he's still young in the game when it comes to fighting. The very top guys, and we still have a lot to learn about him, and he still has a lot of room to grow and a lot of growing to do. So, it's always very hard, as you mentioned. Like, we've talked about prospects, like, another one that you didn't mention, Tom Duquesnoy. Like, so much can happen that all of a sudden you're just gone. So I'm kind of wary about saying, "Oh, this guy can go all the way," when so many things can happen in this game.
It's a tough game, yeah. It really, like, even someone say like Mason Jones, he comes in, he gets a very tough matchup, and then there's like, what was it, a DQ or a no contest or something like that, and his last one, I was like, oh well, that could happen anyway. Look at it happened to John Jones. It happened to the very best of him, although it was his own fault, that one. But anyway,
but even like Sharapov, as you mentioned, or loads of them over the years. Like, people come in looking like they could be the next big thing, and some guys even come in and they kind of slowly build, and then they just fall off a cliff. So personal matters can happen, injuries can happen, number of things can happen. So people can get concussions while they're doing jiu-jitsu. What was it, TJ Grant, was it?
Yeah, it's
he's on the verge of a title shot against Anthony Pettis, a fight that at the time people would have thought, oh, Pettis is going to run through him, but look, in hindsight, the blueprint that ended up being the kind of downfall of Pettis could have easily, not easily, but was well within DJ Grant's wheelhouse to implement. So everything can change so quickly.
100%. While we're talking about that as well, the Modestas Bukauskas Khalil Roundtree fight, what do you think of the finish? Like, a lot of people after that, they were saying ban it.
It's a nasty to what? No, don't ban it. Yeah. No, what? No, don't ban it.
I agree. Like, but
you can't ban strikes. Like, we don't want to turn this into boxing where you're not allowed to throw strikes. Like, oh God, don't ban it. Like, but just when that happens like that, it obviously looks terrible. But like, when somebody breaks a leg with a leg kick, it looks terrible. When somebody gets knocked out cold and gets brain damage, it looks terrible. So you can't start like banning all these things. Yeah. There's no sport left then.
Like, you spoke, wasn't it you that spoke to Owen Roddy that time? And he didn't, you can tell that story, where he said he got a belt and he was still feeling it like a year later. Remember that? And that
yeah, I think it was the little video we did kind of reviewing his career. And he said every time he took a punch, or even when I think he said every time he even hit a heavy bag, the pressure would like fucking, you could feel it for, I think, more than a year afterwards, and he didn't know if he's ever going to get back to normal. And then obviously after a while it went back to normal. But that's scary shit. Like, that's doing some serious damage. That's no laughing matter. That's
100%.
It's not real like studies into MMA concussion, but you can look at the NFL, the whole NFL thing, where they're like, micro, what they call them, micro concussions, or micro, I can't remember. I don't know the exact terminology or whatever, but
I think the main point is that can happen, and people maybe see it all the time. They see like a Luke Shaw breaking his leg, or Ruud van Nistelrooy doing his ACL, or Virgil van Dijk doing his ACL, or we see it. It's very regular, and they're out for 9 months or out for a year or whatever it might be, and it's terrible, obviously terrible. There's guys getting punched in the head all the time in MMA, and like something like what happened to Owen Roddy can happen, or something like, look at TJ Grant, he never fought again, or the Chris, I can't think of his name, this Team Alpha Male guy, the same thing happened to him. I'm pretty sure he got hit in the head, and he's never been able to fight again, probably never will fight again. That
was it, Chris Holdsworth or something like that?
Yeah, that's it. Like, MMA people, and this is a very hard one to talk about, and a very, very hard one, because we always talk about safety, and I do a lot about judging and officiating and refereeing and all, and that's why sometimes I go mad at like Herb Dean when he lets it go on too far, because sometimes we haven't reconciled it with ourselves what these people are actually signing up for, and these people are signing up to go in there and get bones broken, to get brain cells taken away, to tear ACLs, to tear meniscuses and MCLs and all that. That's what they're going in there signing up for, and that's the matter of fact of it. And if we cringe away at like an injury to a knee, we should be cringing a lot more, I'll tell you that. And I've no problem with that. If you've no interest in watching MMA, you never wanted to watch it again because there's too many injuries and it's too rough, Absolutely, that's something we all have to, reckon ourselves with. And it's something we probably can't reckon ourselves with, and that's why we sort of, why we've so much respect for these fighters and what they do. And okay, it's a sport as well at the end of the day, and we have to, if Darren Till doesn't fight well, he doesn't fight well, and we have to say it. Or if someone does fight well, they do fight well, and we have to say it like that as well. But behind it all, we must never forget what these people are going in there doing, and they're putting it all on the fucking line, and someone can end up like Modestas Bukowski, and hopefully it isn't as serious as it looked, but someone can get their fucking knee torn apart, or someone is going to get knocked fucking spark out.
Yeah. Well, luckily we haven't seen it in the UFC, but we've seen in boxing over the years, like people die in the ring, people die after from injuries sustained in the ring, like getting punched in the head repeatedly is fucking, anybody who thinks that's not a big deal is just kidding themselves.
Yeah, and not as big a deal, I suppose the point we're making here, as getting a bad knee injury. No, a bad knee injury is not nice, absolutely, but everything in MMA is not nice, it really isn't. So I don't know, I look, I do understand why people think this is kind of nasty and it should be banned and everything like that, because it's so obvious and it's so, it's the most common injury, and like Limerick, Peter Casey, the All-Ireland final, he did his ACL, he's probably out for 6 months to a year, which is horrendous. And I'm fucking big Limerick fan. It's awful, and you same with Van Dijk last year, we fucking hate it. But MMA, it's a real possibility. It's a real, and so are many other things. And we, if we don't reconcile that, and it's the same for a soccer player or hurler or whatever. You can go out there and get injured. It's a real possibility when you go out there and do it, and more even obviously when it's an MMA fighter. But yeah, look, and as well, it's a good technique by Kelly Roundtree. He threw it a couple of times and he got it done. It's fucking nasty as shit, but it's effective.
Yeah. He said it's something he saw train for that his what's his name again, Modesta?
Yeah, Bukowskis.
Yeah, he was heavy on his front foot, and something he trained. Obviously, he said he didn't throw with such force in training to kind of take care of his training partners, but in there it's you or him. Like it's in the purest form. Like it's he's trying to hurt you, he's trying to injure you, he's trying to beat you, and you're trying to beat him. So any technique that's legal by the rules is like there's no blame for Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah, I thought it was a good performance from him early too. He came out all guns a-blazing, nearly knocked out.
I thought he was going to gas himself out.
Yeah, I thought he did.
He was going so mad in the first round.
Yeah, it was bad, but Bukowskis showed a good chin. He got his nose absolutely burst up. Bukowskis could have fucking 2 or 3 broken
he ran
things,
away well. Like he circled away well. Like he survived. Like he was probably thinking as well, this guy can't sustain this for very long. If I just avoid this, I should be okay. But obviously he wasn't.
Yeah, so a good win for Kelly Roundtree, and hope it's not as serious as it looked for Bukowskis. The co-main event,
I think it's a torn ACL, MCL, PCL, LCL, looked everything.
Yeah, I hope it's not, but yeah, it did look bad. We will get to the Molly McCann fight last, because I really want to concentrate on that, because I have a lot of things to say about that. But the co-main event, this was the weirdest placed co-main event in a long. Why was this fight here? I don't know. But Alex Bruno, good performance. I think he's another guy who has improved an awful lot. I think he's training with Saif Sayoud now, if I'm not mistaken, in that gym in wherever it is in Texas, I think. So a very, very good performance for him over 3 rounds, and it's Reece McKee obviously fought him as well, and a lot of people maybe didn't know him getting into that, but he's beaten Cowboy Cerrone and beaten David Zavada as well, and we know how good David Zavada is. So a very, very good performance from him. And Reece McKee, it was announced, did we talk about it last week? We talked about it a couple of weeks about he's fighting Alexis Mantekivi in his comeback in Cage Warriors, so we'll obviously talk a load more about that in the next couple of weeks. And it's great to see Reece back. But how did I get that? Oh yeah, Alex Morono, good performance on him. But Molly McCann, and we'll end the podcast maybe on this, because Molly McCann is one of those fighters, the best. She's from Liverpool, but she supports Everton, which is the plus straight away. And she's someone who got into the UFC, and I think she got into the UFC maybe 4 or 5 fights too early. They had that belt in Cage Warriors and she won it, and she still has only 15 fights, but she is someone who tonight was one of those ones where Kim, I was watching her before the fight and watching her during the fight. She's a very good technical fighter, big and tall and strong. a similar sort of, a couple of fights less than Molly McCann, but I think she's like a bad matchup for Molly McCann. And Molly was just like, fuck that. Molly McCann refused to lose that fight. She just came forward, fucking balls. Well, I can't say balls out, but she did though. She did. She just went. Look, and there was that head clash, obviously, which probably lost her the first round because it looked like a knockdown. I don't want to mention the commentary because I could go on a 10-minute rant about how fucking Jack Slack called it the goggle box on the screen, which is absolutely perfect. That's exactly what it was. But she probably lost that first round because of that, and had to fight back. I thought she was getting beaten at the start of the second round, but then just put the head down, took over towards the end of the third, and it was all Molly McCann in the end of the second, and it was all Molly McCann in the third. Breaking down that reach disadvantage, coming inside, landing big shots. And look, the effect she was having in her shots, I think in the first couple of rounds was, it was not great. But into the second and in the third round, I think she was landing harder and better shots all the time. And some people wilt as they get further on in the fight. Molly McCann seemed to go harder, and even at the end of the fight, she was roaring and shouting at Kim. So it was, I genuinely think this is a kind of a coming of age from Molly McCann. And this is something maybe that you have to be bang up for a fight to perform like this. But I think if Molly can keep getting bang up for fights and perform like this all the time, she's a danger to anyone. Maybe not the very top, obviously. Shevchenko, not gone mad now here or anything. But I think she's tough as fucking nails, and a very, very good performance. I was very impressed. What did you think?
Yeah, she's always been tough, like all along. She's definitely, as you said, she got into the UFC a little bit early. She's still green coming in, and she kind of, had that toughness to kind of carry her through. But this was a big fight for her. She was coming off 2 losses, 2 decision losses, and a third one here, you could be out the door. So this is huge for her, and you could see in the third round that, it meant a lot to her. She really kind of dug deep, and she's one who always digs deep. But you could see that, she really wanted this one, and I think it might have come down to she just wanted it more than Kim. When the going got tough, she kind of likes it there, and I don't know if Kim did. Kim maybe is a bit more into the technique than the bite down on the mouthpiece kind of style. So maybe that suited Molly, and once the tide had turned, she kind of did a very good job of keeping up the pressure and winning the decision. Where after the halfway through the second round, you could have went either way. You wouldn't have known how to call it. And fair play to Molly. Obviously, she's a bit of a character. Like, she has kind of the connection to Paddy Pimblett. She has the Liverpool connection, and they're kind of like similar to the Irish fans in terms of they really get behind their guys and gals in terms of sport and boxing, MMA, soccer, everything. They're very similar to the Irish in that way, and they really love their own. They get behind them, and I think with a big crowd in London and Liverpool and shows like that, Molly will feed into the crowd, and that will push her on to be even more kind of dogged in her fights.
Yeah, 100%. I think I think she's exactly what you said there. That sort of fighter who, if she could perform like that again in front of an audience in Liverpool, it'd be unbelievable. So I'm looking forward to that. Tonight, well, obviously we're recording this right after the podcast, so we didn't get a full look at it. But on the Chase and Pack this week, we talked about KSW, and I think Sean Dini was actually over at it. So we will have Sean on again to talk about that. But Roberto Soldic got the win. Apparently got a good test against Patrick Klinick. And ended up getting the win in the third round there. Damian Janikowski lost to Pavel Pavlak as well. Dario Stosic got a win, but Anton Rakic lost there as well. And there was also a big win for Thomas Ramikowski as well. So he moves to 14-8, and KSW always put on great cards, and fair play to put on another one. But next week, Graeme, no MMA. No MMA next week. What are we gonna do? What are we like?
There must be something, is there?
No, there's
there
nothing. There's no. I'm looking. There's Dana White Contender Series the next 2 Tuesdays. No, and I'm looking at Topology. 14 days. UFC Fight Night. Bellator 266.
What about an Octagon with a K? That's on.
Is that on? Is it?
September 11th.
I won't be watching that anyway.
František Fodor versus Matos Kohout.
Kahoot? No.
The big one.
I fancy Kahoot now, I know. But
the big one.
Next week on the podcast, Spencer Kite will be joining me to do the State of the UFC. So that'll be up for free for everyone next Sunday. So that's going to be absolutely fantastic. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'll also get a bit of a weekend off, I suppose, because I'll record that during the week and we'll all have it ready. But it's start of the month as well, so patreon.com/Severe MMA Podcast. It's a good time to start up there. And welcome as well to Harry Powell, who has joined Severe MMA, who will be doing some stuff, some videos and articles and things, and Quilcha Debarra as well, who will be starting his exams at the moment, so around the October-November time as well. So delighted to have the lads on and add to the team of obviously the two of us, and Ian O'Neill, who does an absolute fantastic job, Andy Stevenson, Jake Smith, I know Padraig is over working in London now as well, but he's doing great work, and obviously Patrick doing the photography as well with us. So we've a great team on the go at the moment. So welcome to the lads, and we appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have the lads on for podcasts and different things as well. I think Harry has a good few ideas. If anyone hasn't listened to his podcast, it's really great. He's a great interview and stuff. So we have a few ideas coming up, and it's onwards and upwards. Severe MMA. And if you want to support us and support, journalism, I suppose, and people covering the sport, and the real independent people covering the sport who don't go away and work for the broadcasters for a few years and then come back acting like they're independent again. Well, we're here all the time, so you can support us now. So anyway, Graeme, any parting words and anything to say before we go? International weekend, a bit of boring. No, nothing to be done.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no real sport to slag each other about. It's too early in the season for that, and we're both Ireland fans, and obviously it's hard to be an Ireland fan at the moment.
Gary
Neville will finish the group on 0 points, I suppose. That's the kind of level we're at the moment.
Here's
unfortunately.
How many goals do you think Cristiano Ronaldo will get this year in the Premier League?
In the Premier League this year?
Well, this season.
This season, 14.
Ooh, that's low. Do you wanna bet so over and under 50?
He's gonna be taking penalties, actually, isn't he? Ooh,
maybe.
Man United. Oh, yeah.
48.
Maybe. Are you joking?
Maybe Bruno.
He's storming out of the club if he's not taking every free kick and penalty.
Bruno might take him.
Yeah, right.
Legend. Fernandez.
Bruno will be out of the team now, like he is in Portugal with Ronaldo taking up all the space on the pitch.
It's only stupid people really say that. Fucking Bernardo Silva is the issue with Bruno in that team, because they're playing the two of them, and they're two like Bernardo Silva can play in the wing as well, but they're playing two of them as 10s. It's just not possible, I think, to play the two of them in the same team as 2 10s.
Well, Man United, everything kind of goes through Fernandez, kind of like used to with Coutinho in Liverpool, where he's kind of always playing the final pass or always having the final shot, and Ronaldo's like, unless he's passing to him, he's not going to be happy with that.
But sure, you think Bruno's rubbish anyway, so you'd probably think that's a good thing for Man United.
For Man United?
Yeah. Sure, you don't like Bruno, you don't rate Bruno.
No, I think he's a good player. I just think he's been a bit overrated. He's definitely a very good player, though. There's no doubt about that. Like, I just wouldn't see him as a world class player yet. But he could easily turn out to be not easily, but like, it's very hard to be a world class player. But he could turn out to be a world class player. But I don't think he's there yet. I think he goes missing too much for that. I know you don't think that, but
no, it's ridiculous.
For a real world class player, you don't go missing for big periods of games and spend half your time screaming, lying on the ground for no reason.
He is a moody bastard, I must say, which I like. If it was any other team, I'd hate it, but for the fact it's Man United, I kind of love it. He's one of them. I'm sure
he really squeals like a rat, though, doesn't he? Like when he dives.
I love a bit of Bruno. No bad word for me to say about Bruno. It's been exciting.
How many goals do you think Bruno Fernandez is going to score this season?
How many did he get?
He's already got what? He's already got 3, is he?
3, yeah. I think he got 15 or 16 last season, did he, in the Premier League?
Yeah, probably about 8, 9 penalties, was it?
Yeah. Maybe 10, 15, 10, 11. Yeah, I think that'd be a good season,
yeah.
like, you know. Mason Greenwood is fucking... Oh my God, what a player Mason Greenwood is. Like, God almighty.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Mason Greenwood. Like, every time he shoots straight at the goalkeeper, he just doesn't save it. I don't know what's going on. Is it some special technique he does, or are these keepers just absolutely diabolical?
I think he is like... He just shoots quicker than other people and shoots from different positions and other people. Like if Rashford was in half of the position season, Rashford would be like stepping over, cutting, chopping back, and then shooting.
Well, Rashford used to have this though. This used to happen.
But he was never. Rashford was never a great finisher. He was confident.
He did at the very start. He had like the best he had the best ratio for goals in Man United history. Did he not?
Yeah, but he was very confident. He was just hit like when Rashford comes out and just strikes the ball without thinking about it. He's absolutely brilliant, but he thinks too much now. He overthinks everything. Whereas Greenwood can think about it and produce it at the same time. I just think, like, I honestly think
Ollie sticks around long enough to turn him into Rashford.
He's God Almighty. Yeah, that's a worry. But I honestly think, I genuinely think Mason Greenwood will win a Ballon d'Or. I think he's that good. I think he's going to be the best player.
Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, he's brilliant. I have since Ronaldo, I haven't seen very obviously a different player, but I haven't seen a good player playing for Man United. He's special, really brilliant, like. Unbelievable. Anyway, we will. That new fella from Liverpool actually looks good as well. What's his name? Harvey Elliott. I know he's coming through the ranks or whatever. What do you think of him?
He's been there a couple of years. We signed him from Fulham a couple of years ago, and he went on loan to Blackburn. He looks a very good player from the bits I've seen in the season before. I think he played in the league winning season. I think he played 3 or 4 games, maybe in the Premier League, 3 or 4 games in other competitions. It really looks a very good prospect. Surprised to see him, basically starting every game this season so far. But there must be a reason for that. What he's doing in training and pre-season, obviously what he's doing in the championship, and his potential obviously looks to be through the roof. So obviously it's good to see him. And obviously Curtis Jones is obviously a very good player as well. That hasn't really got a look in the season yet, but. Played a lot of games over
Ben Woodburn? Persino?
He went on loan somewhere and it didn't work out, but he played in pre-season, looked decent in pre-season, but I don't think he'll be playing any. No. If he plays any minutes, it'll be cups.
Oh, yeah. He looked good there when he came on the scene, but you never know, I suppose. You never know. Right. We leave it at that. Thank you to everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed the little bit of soccer there at the end. Patreon.com/Severe MMA Podcast. At Sean Sheehan BA on Twitter. Follow me there. I don't have enough followers. I need 600 more. That'll do me. Follow Graeme at Severe MMA. Follow Ian O'Neill. Follow everyone over there on Twitter at Severe MMA Pod as well. Get in your questions all week. I'm trying to open my topics list here to get a quote for the end of the podcast. And my internet, I don't know, is great. Are you still here, Graeme? I don't know, is my internet gone or just won't open? Maybe it's Twitter. Anyway, give us, Graeme.
I'll give you one instead.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to end this with the inspirational quote of the week.
It might not be inspirational though, but
go on, throw it at us. Go on.
Your prejudice won't keep you warm tonight.
See you next Tuesday. Go on, Morrissey. Good luck.